There's a kind of love that does not fear darkness, a loyalty so powerful, destiny itself steps aside, a sacrifice so deep, even the god of death must surrender. Tonight, I want to tell you the story of a queen who gave everything, a king who learned what love truly means, and a hero who confronted death, and won. This is the legend of Admetus and Alcestis, a story from ancient Greece, but a mirror to the courage we all wish we had. Stay with me. In the northern lands of ancient Greece, where rolling plains met distant mountains, there was a kingdom called Thessaly. Its fields were golden, its rivers clean as polished silver, and its people lived with full hearts. And at the center of this prosperity stood a king unlike any other, Admetus, a man who had traveled across seas as an Argonaut, who had once stood shoulder to shoulder with Jason in the quest for the Golden Fleece, a man not known for brute strength, but for kindness, a ruler whose gentleness earned loyalty more effectively than any army ever could. Beside him was Alcestis, his queen, a woman whose beauty was matched only by the steadiness in her eyes and the warmth in her voice. Together, they governed a kingdom that flourished like no other. Music filled their evenings, laughter echoed through the marble halls, and the people of Thessaly spoke with pride. In those days, even the Olympian gods noticed the harmony of this royal household. And one god had a special connection to it, Apollo. Long ago, when Apollo had angered Zeus and was cast down to walk among mortals, he found refuge under the roof of Admetus, not as a guest, not as a god disguised, but as a servant, a shepherd tending the king's cattle. And though Admetus did not yet know the truth, he welcomed the stranger with respect. He offered warmth, shelter, and dignity. When Apollo's punishment ended, the god revealed himself, radiant and golden, and vowed, Admetus, when the weight of destiny presses upon you, call my name. My gratitude will not be forgotten. Those words, spoken in sunlight, would one day be remembered in darkness. Time passed, seasons shifted, Thessaly remained at peace. Until one evening, everything changed. The sun had just set behind the mountains, leaving a quiet glow over the palace. Servants walked softly through the halls, musicians practiced in the courtyard. Alcestis sat weaving near the fire, but Admetus paused. Something cold had touched his spine. Then, the world began to dim. He tried to rise, his legs failed, his breath thinned, his heart pounded once, twice, then faltered. He collapsed into Alcestis's arms. Around him, warmth fled, shadows thickened. He felt fingers, icy, ancient, slide along his soul. It was Thanatos, the god of death. He had not come to take Admetus directly, only to deliver a warning. That night, as Admetus lay weak and pale, the air grew still. The candles flickered and the temperature dropped. Then, they appeared. 3 figures in white, veiled in moonlight. Their presence made even the flames bow. The Moirai, the Fates. Clotho, who spins the thread of life. Lachesis, who measures it. And Atropos, whose shears cut it. They approached the king's bedside and spoke without emotion. Admetus, son of Pharis, your thread nears its end. Death waits at your door. His voice trembled. No, I am young. My people need me. My children. My wife. But the Moirai did not negotiate. Destiny, once woven, did not unravel. Admetus fell to his knees, grasping the garments of the Fates, pleading for more time. His crown slipped from his head, his pride shattered. He begged, something no king had ever done, not to win a battle, not to defend his land, but simply to live. At first the Fates were unmoved, but destiny, though unbreakable, could bend if a god intervened. And Apollo did. His voice burned through the chamber like sunlight piercing fog. "Sisters of destiny," Apollo said, "grant him mercy. He sheltered me when I was cast down." The Moirai paused. They owed Apollo a debt no mortal could ever earn. Finally, they offered a single condition. Admetus may live, but only if another willingly dies in his place. The candles burst. The chamber brightened. The Moirai vanished. Admetus gasped, trembling both with hope and terror. Someone must die for him to live. At dawn, Admetus rose weakly from his bed and summoned his advisors. He truly believed, that many would volunteer. He had ruled with wisdom. He had protected the innocent. He had offered kindness when other kings offered fear. Surely someone would stand in his place before the gates of Hades. But when the truth was spoken, the hall fell silent. One by one, the bravest warriors lowered their heads. His closest friends stepped back. The people who once pledged loyalty whispered excuses. Even his aging parents, who owed him their legacy, their throne, their name, refused. "Son, we are old," they said, "but life, even a few remaining years, is precious." Hope slipped through the king's fingers. The man who had saved others, who had welcomed gods, without knowing it, now found himself abandoned by the very people who claimed to love him. There is a kind of loneliness that fills the room like cold water, rising, rising, until it drowns the soul. Admetus fell into despair. And then, a soft voice broke the silence, a voice he had never expected. "My king," Alcestis said, stepping forward, "let it be me." Admetus froze. "No, I cannot accept." But Alcestis placed her hand over his heart. "I made a vow, Admetus, to walk with you in this life, to protect our children, to preserve this kingdom. If your life ends, all that we built ends with you. Let my love be the shield that death cannot cross." She smiled gently, though her eyes glistened. "Swear to me that you will raise our children with honor, and never let another woman harm their future." Admetus tried to protest. Tears blurred his vision. His hands shook with disbelief. But Alcestis was resolute. She chose love over breath, courage over comfort, sacrifice over survival, and so the agreement was sealed. Thanatos marked her soul, her strength withered, her light faded. The queen lay upon her bed, waiting for the god who would lead her into the realm beyond life. Thessaly fell into mourning. But fate had one more twist to deliver. Word spread across the lands that Admetus's palace was shrouded in grief. But on this day, as clouds gathered overhead and thunder rolled across the plains, a traveler approached the gates, a giant of a man, broad-shouldered, weather-worn, carrying a lion-skin cloak draped over his back and a club carved from an oak tree. Hercules, son of Zeus, the hero of 12 labors, the slayer of monsters, the unbreakable force of mortal and divine blood. He had faced hydras, dragons, giants, and titans, but never had he walked into a home drowning in sorrow. Admetus greeted him despite his heartbreak, fulfilling the sacred law of hospitality that Zeus himself enforced. Honor every guest who seeks shelter, even in your darkest moment. Hercules noticed the tension, the whispers, the pale faces, the empty music halls. Finally, he turned to Admetus. "My friend," he said, "why does grief sit heavier here than any stone I have lifted?" And Admetus told him everything. How death had touched his door, how the fates had demanded a soul, how no one volunteered, how Alcestis, the purest heart in Thessaly, offered herself, how she now lay dying, moments away from crossing into the underworld. For the first time in his journeys, Hercules felt a sorrow deeper than any wound he had carried. He placed a hand on the king's shoulder. You welcomed me with honor, even when your world was falling apart. Zeus himself would praise such loyalty. So hear me now, Admetus. I will not let death take your queen. Those words struck the air like lightning. Admetus stared in disbelief, but Hercules was not boasting. He meant it, with every fiber of his being. He walked to Alcestis's chamber and sat beside her bed, waiting for Thanatos, waiting for the god who had no equal. Waiting for the cold shadow that even heroes feared. Night descended. A chill swept through the palace. Candles dimmed. The walls groaned as if the stones themselves sensed a presence approaching. Then, everything stopped. The wind, the light, the breath of those in the room. Thanatos appeared, tall, dark, silent as a grave, his form cloaked in shadows that moved like living smoke. Hercules rose. Death tilted his head with curiosity. "A son of Zeus," Thanatos murmured, "why do you stand between me and the soul that is mine?" Hercules' voice was steady. "Because she gave her life for love, and I will not allow you to take her." Thanatos' smile was cold. "Love does not stop destiny." "Maybe not," Hercules answered, "but strength might." Then came the clash. The fight was not like the battles of mortals. It was the collision of force and inevitability, of muscle against mist, of divine will against the shadow of eternity. Thanatos moved, like nightfall, silent, sudden, suffocating. Hercules countered with the power of storms, each strike carrying the weight of mountains. Shadows wrapped around Hercules' throat. He tore free. Thanatos swung his scythe, blade trailing darkness. Hercules blocked it with his club, splinters flying like sparks. The palace shook, the windows cracked, servants fled in terror. But Alcestis lay still, her spirit half detached, drifting toward the realm beyond. If Hercules failed, she would be gone forever. With a roar that shook the earth, Hercules lunged forward. He grabbed Thanatos by the cloak of shadows and slammed him to the floor. Thanatos hissed. Darkness spilled across the room like shattered glass. "You cannot kill me, son of Zeus." "I do not need to," Hercules growled. "I only need to force you to yield." He lifted his club, high, divine strength flooding through every muscle. Thanatos saw something he had never seen in any creature, mortal or god, unbreakable will. He recoiled, and in that moment, Thanatos surrendered. The shadows withdrew. The room brightened. The air returned to warmth. "You win," the god of death whispered. "I release her." And then he vanished. Silence followed, a silence so deep it felt sacred. Then Alcestis drew a breath, soft at first, then stronger. Color returned to her cheeks, warmth returned to her hands, her eyes fluttered open, and Admetus collapsed at her bedside, tears dripping onto her palms. She was alive. Not because of fate, not because of prophecy, not because a god decreed it, but because a queen loved beyond fear. A king learned the meaning of devotion, and a hero refused to let death claim a heart that still had more to give. Thessaly rejoiced. Songs rose over the mountains. The fields shone brighter than ever. Apollo smiled from the heavens, and somewhere even the Moirai paused at their loom and allowed themselves a rare moment of quiet admiration. For they had witnessed something extraordinary, a story where love, loyalty, and courage intertwined so powerfully that even destiny itself stepped aside. Ancient tales were never meant to stay in the past. They were written into human memory because they revealed truths that time cannot erase. And from the story of Admetus and Alcestis, three truths echo across the ages. First, love is not measured by words, but by actions. Alcestis didn't declare love. She embodied it. Second, loyalty has a cost, but those who uphold it, like Admetus welcoming Hercules, despite his grief, gain what no wealth can buy, the respect of heroes. And third, courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to confront it. Hercules faced what no mortal dared, not a monster, not a warrior, but death itself. If they could face darkness with such strength, maybe so can we. Maybe we can love deeper, stand braver, hold on to hope even when the world grows cold. Because sometimes, destiny bends for those who refuse to break. As the sun rose over Thessaly, the kingdom awakened to a new light. A queen lived again. A hero's name was etched deeper into legend. And a king learned the priceless truth that life is most worth living when shared with those who would give anything for you. This was the story of Admetus and Alcestis, a story that reminds us the greatest power in the world is not the strength of a god, but the courage of a loving heart. If this story touched you, stay with us. There are more tales from the ancient world waiting to inspire your own.